there was such a chemical break from a biological weapons laboratory in the U.S. at Fort Detrick, I think it was. And there were hazmat suit people out in the streets, and a couple of days of panic, and then somehow it blew over.
I guess I'm curious too, you touched upon that sense of, again, what is the origin of this particular virus? And I have a curiosity too, and you can tell me if it's appropriate to ask from your perspective, but I'm really trying to understand, what is a virus? Like, at least what's the mainstream kind of scientific understanding? And then what do you understand is the role could be a role of viruses in evolution?
As for viruses, I believe viruses were invented by bacteria, by ancient bacteria, as a way of storing their blueprints for building the physical being of a bacterium. And so a virus is actually a kind of crystalline substance that does nothing by itself. It has to have a protein coat in order for anything to happen with it. So the proteins are what you see when you look in the mirror, basically. Mostly you're looking at protein. We have fats, we have proteins, and we have this crystalline substances of DNA that make up our bodies. Now, we've been told that the DNA is kind of a central command center that issues instructions, but it does absolutely nothing until proteins come and walk along these strands of DNA and pick out the pieces of the blueprint, or what I like to call it as that the nucleus is like a library of books, that genes are like books, and they do nothing while they sit on a shelf. It's the proteins, the smart molecules, that have to go and pick out the book they want, copy it, read it, use the information in it to do things within your cell, you see. So that's my view of viruses. And also, we also are given this image of viruses as being able to sort of drill their way into cells, like predatory critters. Well, actually, they have to be allowed in. And what this COVID virus is, with its protein coat, is it's one where the protein coat can trick the cell into allowing something in that it normally would not. And that is what gain of function research, which we know took place in the US first, and then was transferred to China, and then the US kept funding it in China to do this gain of function research. Means give the virus the ability, give it the gain of function to allow it to get into cells you want to drive it into that cells would not normally accept. So we know that took place, and we haven't proven whether this was a leak or an accidental leak. You know, back when I lived in Washington, D.C. in the early to mid 90s, there was such a chemical break from a biological weapons laboratory in the U.S. at Fort Detrick, I think it was. And there were hazmat suit people out in the streets, and a couple of days of panic, and then somehow it blew over. So we know that these things can escape, and that we're afraid of them escaping from these labs, which were set up.
We've got some good horror movies about that.